Thanks so much for coming today. My name is Rachel Mindell, and I direct the Montana Book Festival, and I'm here with
Pragheeta Sharma, and I'm a professor in creative writing in the English department.
Yeah, also, Fatima Sadiqi. I am a Moroccan academic and writer on women's issues, and will be speaking also later.
All right.
Thank you for being here. Yeah.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce you first to Dr. Sadiqi and then tell you about a couple of her recent publications that we'll be discussing today. Fatima Sadiqi is a recipient of a Harvard Fellowship. She is professor of linguistics and gender studies, author and editor of, among other books, Moroccan Feminist Discourses, Women, Gender, and Language in Morocco, Gender and Violence in the Middle East, and Women Writing Africa, the Northern Region. Dr. Sadiqi is an international speaker on various topics dealing with Moroccan women and languages. She was Director General of the Spirit of Fez Foundation, which, among other things, organizes the Fez Festival of Sacred Music, a member of the Board of Administration of the Royal Institute of the Amazigh Culture, and a UN gender expert. Sadiqi founded the first Moroccan Center for Studies and Research on Women in 1998, and the first graduate program on gender studies in 2000 at the University of Fez. In 2006, she founded ISA Center for Women and Development. So we'll be talking about two of her books mainly today. She will be giving a keynote speech tonight at 7 p.m. So we'll try to focus our talk today on books, writing, research, and publishing. We'll be talking about her 2014 book, Moroccan Feminist Discourses. Here's a little about that. Revisiting the Moroccan feminist discourse in the aftermath of the uprisings in the region, which, among other things, brought about the spectacular change in the political status of Berber from an indigenous, centuries-long marginalized language, to an official language of Morocco, came with serious challenges to the feminist discourses by highlighting the stark absence of Berber, a woman-related language, in these discourses. And then she also has a book, which will be out in just a couple days, called Women's Movements in Post-Arab Spring, North Africa, and a little on that book. Until recently, studies of the North Africa women's movements have focused on single aspects of women's achievements at a time, single aspects of women's achievements at a time. By providing a comparative analysis, this book for the first time sheds light not only on the role that these superstructures play in shaping women's experiences in North Africa, but also on the rich variety of women's responses to authority and their potential contributions to African and global feminist thought. Can we give another round of applause for Dr. Sadiqi?
Thank you. Thank you.
Rachel and I have been having just such an exciting time reading your theory and diving in. And we thought that it would be good to just begin by asking you to tell us about your own personal background and then how you developed an interest in linguistics and women's issues in North Africa. I know that's broad, but we thought we'd give the audience some overview questions.
Okay, so I originate from a Berber remote village in the Atlas Mountains in Morocco. So Montana is, I like the scenery, the mountains. And I am the very first woman to go to school in my family. And that was because I had an enlightened father who believed in me and also moved the family to the city. I was in the military. And I'm also writing a book on the role of the military in the emancipation of Moroccan women, because I think I owe my education to my father and not to the state. And for the book that I mentioned, I started, whenever I met Moroccan women who have made it, either in academia or in politics, I would just very informally ask them what their father was doing. And to my surprise, I came up with 25 cases of high-profile Moroccan women with military illiterate rural fathers. And then I said, if you look at the history of feminisms in the Middle East and North Africa, a lot of men are accredited for helping women go from the private to the public sphere of authority. But most of these men are educated, savvy, urban, but rural, illiterate fathers are not there. So I said to myself that, and also, I mean, these fathers who transited from rural to urban areas turned to be, or proved to be, less conservative than the urban conservatives. And they believed in education as the only way out, and they did not make a difference between girls and boys. So I'm collecting all these testimonies with pictures of these men, and I'm excited whenever I think of the day that the book will come out as a tribute, because I lost my father in 2005. So, I mean, I have been interested in women's issues, but it was my father, a man, who really gave me the opportunity, as I said, by taking me to school and believing in me, and also a lot of things that he used to say, like, I know you are smarter than your brothers, but let's pretend they are. So, yeah, things like that. So that helped me. I mean, as I said, my girl's mind, very young, but still I could see things there. And things like he also once, I remember, was doing my homework. And in order to encourage me to go on with my homework, he was illiterate, he never went to school. He would take a book and pretend he was reading. But the book was upside down. Yeah. So it's these little things that I still remember of him. And also, it's a man who helped me, and also I have only sons. So sometimes I wonder, why am I interested in, in feminism? But there it is. I mean, it's part of me. You asked me, that's where I come from. And then when I went to school, I remember that a lot of, you know how children are cruel sometimes, and how they make fun of you if you speak a language they don't speak. So Berber was sort of stigmatized as a backward rural language, although Berbers, I mean, they cut across the social spectrum. There are rich, poor, etc. So I had this sensitivity to language as something that can give you power together with gender. So gender and language at the same time. I was very sensitive to the power of these two categories. So that's why I ended up being, and I also remember once at the university when two friends of mine started quarreling about whether Berber was or was not a language. And I still remember one of them saying, well, Berber cannot be a language because it doesn't have a grammar, it doesn't have a dictionary. That's why I went into linguistics, and that's why I was also very much attracted to Chomsky's theory that a grammar for language is in your mind, you have to hook it out. So I became a linguist, I became a Chomsky linguist, although that clashes with my feminist aspect, but that's how things happened anyway. So I became a Chomsky linguist, and I wrote a grammar of Berber, the first one by a national, because many French colonials wrote grammars of Berber, but I wrote mine in 1997 and in French, and it was published because I wanted people to know that there you are, Berber is a language. So language, as I said, and gender, because being a woman, although I had, as a little girl, of course, I had all the support of my father, but I also knew that it was not easy to be a woman, at least my generation. So I had to fight my way back. So those two things, I mean, the rural background, the language, and the fact that I was a woman, all these things played a big role in who I am today. Yeah.
Wow, I'm just looking at some of the questions that that sort of follow up on that one. Oh, yes, okay, sorry. And I mean, maybe you'll be talking about this later tonight, and this is not on this list, but I was just thinking about this idea that it seems like before you wrote your book on grammar, there were more of a colonized version. So you were really kind of dissecting a lot of gender distinctions in that. And
in language.
Yes.
Yeah, I see. Well, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, but what I understood is that, there's already an interaction between gender and language. Oh, yes, definitely. Because thank you for that question. Let me take you back to the Moroccan context, where there are 4 major languages that are spoken, that are used, I would say. Arabic, because Arabic has a written and an oral form. So the 2 Arabics, French, Berber also, and so that's and of course, I mean, English is not as strong in Morocco as it is in the Middle East, so French is the language. But these languages, they don't have the same type of power or authority. For example, the 2 languages of education are written Arabic and French. So you cannot call yourself an educated person if you don't have these 2 languages. You need to read Arabic, because Arabic is not a mother tongue. You don't acquire it. You have to learn it at school, which makes of it more of a male language. I mean, women don't use Arabic to talk to their kids. They use Moroccan Arabic or Egyptian Arabic or Algerian Arabic. So this relationship of women with written Arabic is different from the relationship that men have in general. To make this point clear, imagine Morocco, where our king gives his speeches in standard or written Arabic, but where illiteracy is high. So over 50% of Moroccan women don't understand what the king said in his speeches. So language is very, very important, and it does interact with gender. So Arabic, then you have French. French is also used at school, in administrations. Women relate to it differently. First, only women who have education relate to it, but women relate to the prestige aspect of it. I can speak French, it means I'm educated, whereas men relate more to the military business aspects of French. Now, Berber is a mother tongue. It has always only recently started to go into school, but it is the oldest language in North Africa. It's a language of identity. It's actually, it was only in 1933 when we were colonized at that time by the French, and when the French came up with something called the Berber Decree, le Daïr Berber, trying to divide the population between Arabs and Berbers, the usual thing. It's only then that we became Moroccan, before Moroccan identity. Before 1933, the country was Muslim, full stop. But after this decree, which tried to like have Berbers come under the jurisprudence, their own jurisprudence, but not the Islamic Sharia law, that Berbers wanted to be Muslim more than anything else. So they sacrificed their identity to become Moroccan. It's then that we've started to become Moroccan. This is also shows you how important language is. So we don't have an ethnic problem. We have a language problem. We have a communication problem. And this ties in with publishing. I hope you ask me a question about that. Who has access to the languages of power? It's usually men, more men than women. Women relate more to Berber, and they have been transmitting it more than men throughout history, and to Moroccan Arabic than to written Berber or written Arabic or French. So we have these dynamics, which French, yes, Moroccan Arabic, Berber is more of a female language. So that's English. Yeah, English seems to be favored by young people, but I have never had a chance to go into studying what are the interactions between gender and English in Morocco. But I mean, what's important here is that, since you are asking me about my own personal experience with writing, is that I wanted to learn French, and I thought that French and standard Arabic were somehow imposed on me at school. But English is a language I chose. We choose a language at high school. So I was conscious, it was my conscious choice to use English. And also through English, I came into women's studies and tried to relate the theories to what I am and where I come from. So yes, there is an interaction between language and gender, definitely. Especially, we were talking this morning about multiculturalism and all that, but yes, and multilingualism also is very, very important in the region. This communication, who communicates with who, what are the languages of power, of authority in this communication, who do you want to communicate with, and how much do you want to communicate? This problem transcends education. It's a cultural thing, because it mixes with a religion, and the Arabic being closer to a religion, all that. Yeah.
Thank you.
I was interested in how we've asked you about your personal story, but you actually, in Moroccan feminist discourses, you begin each chapter with a personal story. So I was interested in how you think storytelling and narrative influence or inspire your research process.
Yes. In the book you mentioned, yes, I actually finished the book, and I said, maybe I put myself in the shoes of the reader, and I said, well, each chapter deals with something specific. Like the first chapter deals with the importance of Berber, because the Berber issue. There are three social movements in Morocco: the Islamist movement, the women's movement, and the Berber movement. So it's a new thing, and this youth they want to understand how is it that Berber is their identity, but they don't see it having the same, if you want, value as Arabic, for example. So in order to make that a chapter closer to the reader, I talk about my own journey with Berber, and how and all the problems I had, and how I hated my father or my mother speaking Berber to me in front of my peers. And so I relate all that before going into the scholarly analysis of the situation, and try to explain why this language, which was there, like 3,000 years at least, but it's only now that it's acknowledged in the Constitution. And the fact that it is also a secular language, which is not backed by a religious book, but at the same time, almost all Berbers are Muslim and all that. So in order to understand all these things, I had to start that chapter with a personal story about Berber. Then I move on to the genesis of the feminist movement in Morocco. So, and I talk about how secular, by the way, I have to, secular means that it's political. It means that you want to separate. You don't want to include Islam or the religion in your thinking. How secular feminists and Islamic feminists look at women's issues and how they are divided by politics. When I did that, I needed to give my own experience about how I came, how I was bumped into the two dichotomies, the two big blocks of feminists in the country. So I gave my personal story about a march that I attended, march, the Islamist march and the secular march, and how I felt and why is it that there was no Berber march and so on. And then I moved on to other chapters, and in the end I explained how Berber Women's Agency is millennial, how important it is, and they talk about their type of knowledge, their type of experiences, like carpet weaving, these things that speak in most of what Moroccans do, etc. So yes, I felt it was good to mix my personal life with what I write, because in the end, I mean, I'm no poet, I am no novelist, but I can see that whatever happens to you as a person in a way or another, I mean, no matter how many jackets we put on, but still there's something that sticks to your skin, and that's the most important thing that you need to reconcile with and express. Yeah.
Another personal point that you is you talk about graffiti and the use of the form of expression like graffiti in discussing in Moroccan feminist discourses as significant in the various boundaries it crosses.
I am still, I mean, bewildered by the graffiti, the power of it. And in the book that you mentioned, the second one, there is a very nice article by an Egyptian woman who talks about the Egyptian experience with Arab Spring and how women suddenly found this space where they could escape the authority of the military, for example, or the religious, and just be left alone and express themselves through graffiti. And then I digged into my own memory, but the book happened before this, but the graffiti you mentioned is very much linked to Berber, because I remember at the university where I teach, we had the dean of our school who would say that if you want to gauge the pulse of students, what they want, what they need, you simply have to go to the restrooms and see what they write on the exam. So so they write, and sometimes they write something and they get an answer, and it's like a dialogue. So I would go very early to the men's restrooms and start recording what they write. And guess what? He was true, this dean of ours. I recorded those expressions like, it's our time now, Berbers are back, and yes, we are all Muslims. You are arrogant, you think that only Arabs are Muslims, we are also... And I went into that, and I said yes. And during that, it's during that year that we had the most movement, the most agitation on pushing for Berber. And it started, yes, in the restrooms. Because restrooms, because also this is linked to the freedom of expression, because you cannot write anything on the public walls of the university. You have to go to the restroom where the police doesn't see it or the Secret Service doesn't see it. So yeah, graffiti is not simply a way of expressing oneself. It's also a political statement. It's also a personal statement. You express your inner self in a space where you think you are safe. And that's very important, and it's anonymous. And we do have something called, it's like security guards at the university who started to have a job on their hands because they had to go and erase all those things. So I bumped into a couple of them, and they looked at me and they said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Oh, simply one of my students forgot something." Or yeah, it's then that I stopped going to men's restrooms. Yeah.
Just to follow up, I just wanted to, just an overview, if you could give context to our audience who may not be familiar. Can you tell us about the Arab Spring and how women were involved and perhaps the family lives?
Yeah.
Just because you had mentioned it and
Yeah.
yes.
I will talk about that. So,
Okay.
yeah, it's good that they are kept on there so that they can come at 7 o'clock. Okay. But anyway, I guess, I mean, you... women were very efficient as mobilizers in the Arab Spring. And I think a lot of narratives that you see beyond the Arab world are full of pictures of women, very strong young women and older women who were very present, but there was a backlash there. So maybe, I mean, I will leave this to 7 if you allow me,
That sounds great.
because that's part of what I'm going to tell you this evening.
Maybe to return to the idea of public and private language that you were discussing with graffiti. You've said that women have played a central and ancestral role in preserving language. I wonder
Yes.
if you could talk about that and if there's any ties with publication and the writing of books.
Yes. Well, that's a very good question. Actually, in addition to those 2 books that you mentioned, I had a most eye-opening experience in my life from 1996 to 2009, where I participated together with a team of 23 women and 2 men from across the region, a project a very beautiful project, which was led by Florence Howe, who is one of the first American feminists in this country and who is still alive. She was director of the Feminist Press, the first women's press in this country. And she was not, or she's not, she's a poet, by the way, never been involved in Africa, but she had a very nice experience in India, where she met women who were ready to finance and fund a project called Women Writing in India. So she liked the experience, and she could get 2 big funds, I mean grants from the Ford and Rockefeller, and she, together with 2 Ghanaians, African scholars, to write something called Women Writing Africa. So Africa was divided into 4, west, east, north, south. And she wanted actually to have groups of women to try to gather texts from women, just women, different, I mean, whether we're feminists or not, across history, in order to rewrite like the history of North or South Africa from the perspective of women. So I was involved in that. I am one of the editors of Women Writing Africa, the northern region. And it was very eye-opening, as I said, very important to know that is this very close relationship between women and expressing themselves either orally or in writing, or whatever, in poetry. Yeah, that was very important, because the very first women in the Arab world who became or who gained some kind of notoriety were poets or literary writers. Yeah, yeah, it's a very interesting race of women. But yes, because they deal with something that's very fragile, but that's our souls, but at the same time very important. Yeah, so I learned a lot from that experience. Yeah.
This is off the questionnaire, but I'm curious about, and it's probably have a long answer, but the radicalism of that exchange of expressive arts and of theory and kind of the linguistic action. Did you find? I guess I'm just interested in the interconnection of that radicalism of
What radicalism?
or radicalism of creative expression and theory coming together with editorial work.
Yes.
Or maybe it's not. I mean, I'm just
No. I'm not thinking of me. I'm thinking of a poet, a Lebanese poet, who said that she could not actually address that relationship. As you said, it's very strong. So they just write, and they don't care what other people think of what they write. Whereas a person like me, I mean, it's good to have book reviews. I'm interested in what people think of the analysis and so on. And they build on that. I get a lot of inspiration from what people think of what I write. And also I keep interacting with students, because I am a university teacher, so I keep in touch with students and so on. But this radicalism that you are talking about, it comes with a cost, of course. I mean, you have to wear a mask, you have to talk about it in different ways, you have to talk about it only amongst people who can understand it, and so on. And there are different personalities. We were talking before, I mean, I am not a creative writer, but I appreciate that very much. Yeah, I think it's a very strong thing that maybe I have, but I cannot express in that way. You say express it in the ways that I know. That's just scholarly writings.
There is an interview that you did with Vital Voices, and you were talking about the process of writing, and you said, writing is a continuous discovery. What I write allows me to know myself better. It is a thrilling experience. And I'd love if you'd be willing to say a little bit more about that, what you've discovered through your own writing.
Now I realize I have not tackled the second part of your question about the space. Writing and publishing, they constitute a space that's part of the bigger patriarchal space. As I was saying this morning during the radio interview, all societies are patriarchal today, at least. All of them are patriarchal, but patriarchy does not manifest itself in the same way everywhere. So I'm going to use mainstream Western patriarchy. I know that it's very, very complex, but just for the sake of the argument, I would say that, and this is not something I said, but something I read, that mainstream Western patriarchy is more based on the image. The way I understood it is that women in mainstream Western societies earned or got their rights the moment they became consumers. So it's the image that the money makers, the money havers or whatever create of the woman, and the woman tries to live up to the image. In our part of the world, I mean, from Saudi Arabia to wherever, it's not based on the image, because to start with, Gulf countries are very wealthy, but the image, if you want, patriarchy does not work there. So what works in our countries or in our societies is space-based patriarchy. That's what our patriarchy is. So anything that's out there in the public sphere has authority and needs to be male, even when you see females out there, but it's a male domain. So writing is still considered as a male thing. Women don't write. They, Shahrazad, they talk. They don't write. They sometimes they have poetry, they sing, but they don't write. Writing is an act of reason. When you reason, I'm not. Yeah, this is very problematic, but reason, the mind, the head, and all that, that's male. Guess what? Another thing that I've been grappling with lately is I'm trying to go back to, were there any women grammarians, linguists before? You know that the Arabic language, the number of studies on the Arabic language is huge, but I didn't find a single woman grammarian. And I'm sure that women were teachers. They passed on religious knowledge from the time of the Prophet. They were very, very present in the transmission of knowledge throughout the centuries. But we don't have them. And many philosophers also admitted in the past that they had women teachers, but we don't see that. So writing is a male exercise. That's why you don't find a lot of women in the business of writing. But the youth, with social media, with blogging and all that, you see more. But it doesn't mean also that we didn't have writers before. We did have quite notorious writers. If you are a woman writer, you have to be a very good one. Yeah. That's also pressure that's exercised. It's a gender pressure. You cannot afford to be mediocre or small. You either disappear or you self-censure yourself. But you have to be good. Yeah.
I think one of the questions that we have actually, which connects to this, is what are thinking about strength and good and visibility.
Yeah.
What are the struggles you faced to publish your writing and research, either as a result of gender or culture? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, it's like anything else. When you publish, you have to be cited. And I'm thinking of myself, it's students usually, or intellectuals who constitute the audience. But on the other hand, remember what I told you. In order to be accepted as a writer, in my case, I had to write in Arabic also. So I write in Arabic, and sometimes I write in Arabic, I translate into French. I also write in French. So in order to be visible in a society like a Moroccan society, we have very few people writing English. But people are also aware of the fact that if you want to go global, you have to write in English, because then you reach more people across the region, and with social media and all that, So there's that constraint. Okay. Yeah.
So you were saying that women talk, and then I also see in some of your books that there's a process of listening, there's a process of collaboration. And in the new book, you talk about North Africa as a region of diversity. You say it is not heterogeneous. And in light of that, you bring in a number of different authors with different expertise, to speak about their regions.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that process of collaboration in your research?
Yes, it's not only that, but when you deal with women, yes, you have to deal with language. So like in this book, I had to translate a whole chapter because I wanted to have a voice from Mauritania, as a marginalized voice from Mauritania. So it took me a long time to really translate, and you have to have it reread and so on. Yes, there are struggles there, and you have, as you said, to listen. You have to understand and sometimes travel. So there's that. The other thing is that you have, because you see women's issues, they are dealt with by three types of women. You have to target the activists, the politicians, and the academics. In addition to, in order to have something in writing, you have also to interview a lot of women orally, especially when I did Berber, because the language is, I felt, well, that it was disappearing, so we had to talk to older women who have the knowledge, who have the oral poetry, some of them from my own family, and one of them is my husband's grandmother. It's there that I took those texts from her. She was blind. She was, she didn't even know, I mean, her age, but she was very old. And when I took those lines that I recorded her first, and then I transliterated her, and I translated that into English. And when I took the literature to Florence Howe, because she was, I mean, we trusted her as she's an excellent editor. She didn't know, I mean, who the poetry came from, and she is herself a poet, but she liked those poems. And that was really very revealing for me. I don't, still now, sometimes I don't know how she could relate to this Berber poetry, which was translated, and she even retranslated some of it her own way. So, yeah, when you write in our countries, so you are a woman, you have linguistics obstacles, the gender obstacles, the politics, but when you analyze, because in this Women Write in Africa, we took these poems or texts or whatever, but we had to contextualize them. They are very political. I mean, when you analyze them, they are not just poetry. They are very expressive of the self, of the society, of the anger, of, yeah. But yeah, listening, I think, in what we do is very important. Yeah. I remember my father saying, well, you have 2 ears and 1 tongue, and you should use them in that proportion. So you listen. Yeah. You listen. You listen more than, so yeah, listening, I mean, you get to know people more, you get to, yeah, and I am a great fan of, yeah, having other people, even when they don't agree with you, even when they attack you. It's great. I mean, it's always it's a plus. Yeah. So, yeah.
Should we do some Q&A with the audience, or should we ask one more question?
I have one more question.
Okay,
if that's
great.
okay.
Yeah, just
I read a story that you shared with an interviewer about someone coming to your office looking for a Dr. Sadiqi and thinking it would be a man and turning away.
Yeah.
What sort of expectations have you had around what kind of research you're doing and who you are that are related to gender?
Yeah, yes. I mean, that he was a student at that time, and he became a colleague, and we had discussions about this. But to answer your question, it had an effect on me, a big one. Why is it? So I had to work hard to prove myself. I mean, to tell you the truth, it was not easy because, I mean, when someone comes to your office and he said, who is doctor? And you said, I am. And he said, no, goes to someone else. It means that there is something. I mean, I thought like I lacked something, so that I had to work hard on. And it's like one listening to the 2 students talking about Berber being a language or not. You feel frustrated and you feel angry also. But I talked to him later on, and he said, yeah, we had a discussion on that. He said he was learning, and he said that he was true to himself, and that he said it was very, very hard for him to understand that a woman, a young woman, because this happened a long time ago, could be a doctor. Yeah. Yeah.
I guess I'll add a follow-up, which was one of our questions, because you're a teacher. Do you find that there are approaches that you have to encourage for your female students, or to redirect your male students in the practice of thinking more as a feminist?
Oh, it doesn't make me any younger, but I think that by now a lot of even male students think that they tell me in so many words that you are my icon. That's great. Yeah, even young men. I mean, you have to work hard with it, but you have to show it by what you do, because you see, when you start giving advice and all that, young people don't really take that. So they just have to be in a situation where you make them feel that it's important to appreciate what women do. And it's not easy, yeah, but it takes time. Yeah, nothing is, as Voltaire said, nothing is, he said in French, rien n'est gratuit dans ce bas monde, nothing is gratuit. Nothing is free in this low world. You have to work for it. This is what I think. Yeah, and people, I think they sense or they feel honesty and sincerity. Sincere, when you are sincere, that people know. So and also you learn as a person. So it's a give and take process, and yeah.
Would anyone in the audience like to ask any questions?
Oh, there's a microphone. Okay. Right there.
There's a microphone back in the corner. There's a microphone back in the corner.
I know it always takes a minute to formulate.
It's okay.
Or we could come to you.
Yeah, we can come to you.
There's a question.
Here.
You say you are a married woman.
Yeah.
How did you meet your husband? Was this arranged by your family?
Yeah, that's a good question. I met my husband at the university. We, he's also a researcher, and we are still married. Yeah, we met as students. It was not arranged. It was my own choice. But since you asked me, I'm going to share with you my personal story. I had my BA, and when I had my BA in Morocco, you have a chance to go to England to do your postgraduate. I went to my father and said, I want to go to England. And guess what? It's very difficult in our culture to say this, but he said to me, do you know someone like that? And being a daughter of her own father, I said, yes. Because I knew this young man at that time, and he said, why don't you bring him here? You get the marriage contract and you go with him. Because if you go to England, I am the eldest of 9 children. So he said, if you go to England, then I will sleep, he said. I will be okay. That's exactly what I did. I took my boyfriend at that time to the house, and that's how it started. And his family came, and we had this quick marriage, and they went, and we had 5 years honeymoon in London. We got, yes, the MA and PhD, yeah. And I was the one to insist that we did the PhD at that time, because after the MA, he wanted to go back, and I said, no, if I go back, I will start having kids, he will come back, I won't, and blah, blah, blah. So that's how, yeah. I was very lucky. Yeah. Sorry, I met him at the university. Yeah. Who? Who? Yeah. Yeah, well, I liked him. He liked me. Actually, he is also himself a researcher, and yeah.
I think. And then we have a question right over here. Yes.
Thank you for coming to the University of Montana. Your presence with us is highly appreciated.
Thank you.
Could you shed some light for all of us on the origins of the terms Berber and Amazighi?
Yeah. Thank you. Now, Berber in the Anglo-Saxon literature is not a pejorative word. But in French, Berber, at least in the literature, it's very much linked to barbare, which means savage, alien. And they trace it back to how the Romans qualified anyone who didn't speak their language back in history. And in Arabic, it's even more changed. Barbar, it really means what it is. So Amazigh, and we Berbers, we don't call ourselves Berber. We call ourselves Amazigh. Amazigh means free man, freedom, okay? Which was not very much appreciated by the rulers anyway. So, because they didn't want freedom. But I must say, I mean, to be very politically correct on these things, is that we had Berber dynasties in the past. And I mean, Berbers were the people who actually went into Iberia, Andalusia, and so on. So we had Berber dynasties who never took Berber as their official language. Arabic has always been the official language of the kings and monarchs throughout history. So it stayed the language of the people because it's not backed. To rule a country like ours in the past or now, you have to have the legitimacy. You have to have the legitimacy, and Arabic seems to have more religious legitimacy than Berber. So that's Berber. So Amazigh is more politically correct. And even though, I mean, I consider myself one of the first people who wrote, I am a linguist, but I wrote my 2 theses in England on Berber. And I wrote my first books as a linguist in Berber. But when I speak to students and when I use the term Berber in Arabic or French or English, and you had all students shouting, no, you have to use Amazigh. So the young people of today in the movement, they don't use Berber. But I keep always this footnote because I'm used to Berber. It's an Anglo-Saxon. It doesn't have any connotation, any bad connotation for me, so I use it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you. I'm sure, of course, you are familiar with Tar Benjaloun, Assia Djebar, and Nina Bouraoui. So, but do you think there are more writers on the Algerian side than on the Moroccan? If it's true, I'm not about cinema. I don't know, but if it's true, what do you think it is? Is it because of the Algerian Revolution, which didn't happen in Morocco? And also, what do you think of the use by certain cultural instance in France of Bouraoui, who is very critical of patriarchy, since it's one of your key words, like in La Voyeuse Interdite, she is really ferociously attacks even the father.
Yeah. You mean there are more writers, Algerian writers who went really
and
deep.
Women writers.
Yeah, like
is that
Assia
true?
Djebar.
Or is this true? Or c'est vrai? Ou?
C'est pas totalement vrai. Yeah, we have Moroccan, we have maybe less Tunisian writers in French, but we do have many Moroccan poets with the Prix Goncourt, with very high profile prizes, literary prizes, like small Nobels, for Moroccans than Algerians. But there are also, I mean, Algerians, you have less and less of them, but we have more and more Moroccans. But something is true, is that the French stayed in Algeria much longer than they stayed in Morocco. It's from 1932, was it, until 1962. It's a long time. But one thing I can attest to, because here I promised myself to talk about me also as, to link this to myself and how I see things. Many of my colleague writers in Morocco who write in French, some of them never set foot in France. So for them, there is a Moroccan French. It's part of the Moroccan landscape. It's part of who they are. It has nothing to do with colonizing. And I'm thinking also of this British poet, a French-British perfect bilingual, who comes to my village every year, and he speaks Berber better than I do. So sometimes language is it really hits you inside you and becomes your language. So Francophone writers, Moroccan writers, consider French as a Moroccan language, not a colonial language. And they tell you, well, no one imposed it on us, and they write beautiful diction or whatever, and they consider it their own. Fatima Bernisi, the first feminist, I mean, she expressed herself in French, and she did not hesitate to say why. She said, it's because I can express taboo words in French, that I cannot use the sacred Arabic dealing with sexuality and all that. So in order to find a niche in the male literary circles, she had to use French. Now, for these writers, as I said, I mean, it's not that they are colonized because they never left Morocco anyway. It's just their language of expression. And it's like Arabic for many of us. I mean, it's not a mother tongue, but personally, it's a language I really like and love because of the poetry, because of the Arabic language is one of those languages that you really like. Especially even the pre-Islamic poetry is really something. Yeah, you can love a language, you can make it your own, you can express your inner self through it. Without, I mean, in this radicalization mood that you say, without thinking colonized or whatever, or even religion. So you express yourself in that language. But to answer your question, I really don't know, I mean, for sure, but it seems that, yeah, there are more Moroccans now than Algerians. But there are many French Algerians who are already settled in France, whole generation, who consider themselves the Berbers who first went there, and they consider themselves very much integrated.
Bouraoui is a Berber name, right? Bouraoui.
Who are they?
Nina Bouraoui.
Amina Bouraoui, I honestly, I don't know. I mean, I'm sorry about that, I don't know. I was thinking of the other Bouraoui who was Sukaina, not Amina. She is an activist. Yeah.
Thank you for coming to Missoula, Dr. Sadiqi. My question was if you could shed any light on the role played by Moroccan and maybe specifically Berber women in the 1956 revolution in Morocco.
In Morocco, oh yes. I will, yes, I will touch on that this evening. Yes, they did play, well, women during colonization and right after independence, they played a bigger role in Algeria because you see, there is a pattern in the region, and now I am sure about it, is during mobilization time. And I think it's in other languages, in other societies as well, women become very important because of this stereotype that we have, if a woman can do it, any man can do it. So you push the women there. So women did play a big role in the revolutions. The thing is that they disappear after the revolution. And this I had to experience firsthand when because I taught a couple of years in the military academy in Morocco, and during one of our last of year shows and whatever festivals and so on, they had these little military who had to jump from planes, parachute. So for the first time, before the young men did the jump, they would bring an experienced woman to do it. So the first woman, when she did it, then all the young men do it. I saw it. And they said, well, I said, well, yeah. They said, if a woman does it, then the young man cannot say we cannot do it. I saw this experience. So yeah, women are very important in revolutions.
Hi, thank you for coming to the University of Montana. We all appreciate it. Sorry,
Thank you. Yeah.
I jumped in before you were ready. So I've been thinking a lot about religion recently and feminism pertaining to it, and I was wondering, do you think it's possible for religion and feminism to be compatible? Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, spontaneously. I don't mix the two. Yeah, religion does not bother me at all. But feminism, I like this theory of Edward Said, who's an Arab American, who said that words and concepts are like human beings, they travel. And like human beings, some of them are stopped at the customs and searched, and sometimes sent back, and some of them are accepted with open arms. So if you look at Moroccan Arabic, for example, a lot of words are accepted. Computer, television, no problem. But feminism and gender, oh my God. I mean, we had a hell of a time trying to translate them into Nasawiya, Nisaiya, what have you, things that are alien. But I think that beyond the terms, the concepts are important. So the concept of feminism, if you ask a Moroccan your age, for example, now a lot of them would tell you we are feminists. And in my students, I mean, almost 60% of them are male. Because feminism there means you try to develop a society by giving an opportunity to women. It's not like, so there, I mean, religion wouldn't bother you. It is something else. But that's one thing. But the other thing is that if you are an Islamic feminist, you want to show Muslim men out there that even without a hijab, for example, or with a hijab, you can outsmart them in trying to interrogate the texts, and that it's not the texts that are a problem, but whether you are accepted as someone who explains the sacred text or not. That's a different thing. So that religion is important because a lot of my colleagues, in order to engage in trying to question or interrogate the sacred text, they have to wear, because, I mean, if you don't do it, it means that you are not religious. That's something that would bother me. So I decided to be free of those two camps, because yeah, secular and religious, and be free of them. But I have a lot of respect, and they would engage with Islamic feminists, because at least they go into a public space which is male, and they give their own take on that. That's very, very important. But I mean, you have to become, as in Christianity, you have to really read a lot of text to be able to explain from within. I mean, you don't want to make a fool of yourself and say, well, I don't know what this man said. It's you have to know the texts. So, yeah, I mean, I don't see any clash between religion and being a feminist. Not at all. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Well, thanks so much for being here
Thank
today.
you.
Thank you to Dr. Sadiqi for speaking
you.
with us.